There's a lot of games that I've played that have brought back a lot of nostalgia over the years. I've had the opportunity to play IDW's games like Centipede as well as Missile Command. There's been Ninja Turtles, and there's been all sorts of different Street Fighter-like games. But nothing brings more nostalgia than this game here, where we're going to have Strongbad illustrate how to draw a dragon.
Here I go once again with the email. Every week I hope that it's from a female. Oh man! Not from a female. Hey, Strongbad, can you draw a dragon? I want to see your skills of an artist. Okay. Well, G2G, guys are from California. A dragon? That's easy. Feel free to follow along with my simple step-by-step instructions. I make drawing fun. To begin, draw an S for snake, or dragon, or whatever. Next, we'll draw a more different S. For the head, put a top mark on a long V. Then you add some legs, throw on a couple of arms, and... Whoa, wait a minute. I think I need to start over. This thing doesn't look natural. Okay, starting again, the same way. S, more different S. Close it up real good at the top for his head, and then, using consummate V's, give him teeth, spinities, and angry eyebrows. And you can add smoke or fire, or maybe some wings, you know, if he's a wingaling dragon. Let's put one of those beefy arms back on him for good measure. That looks really good. Coming out of the back of his neck there. Now he needs a name. How about Trogdor, the Burninator? Oh yeah, check out all his majesty. There's my dragon, Kaiser.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Unfiltered Gamer Kickstarter board game review. Today's game up on the tabletop is this beautiful, illustrious game called Trogdor, the Burninator, the board game, in which you're going to be playing as Trogdor himself. The game is for 1 to 4 players, takes about maybe 25 minutes to 45 minutes to play the game, and in which case you're going to be moving around the board as your favorite hero, Trogdor. Now, of course, your objective is to burninate. Burninate the peasants, burninate the villages, and burninate the entire ground in which you stand.
Burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants, burninating all the people in the thatched roof cottages!
The objective at the end of the game is to accomplish burnination on everything if you possibly can, or to get smushed. If you die, if you get smushed, you're gonna die, but that doesn't matter because you'll still have death throws. And death throws means if you lost all of your health points, you'll get a chance to come back and burninate everything, and you can still win. The game is going to be played in different actions in which you can choose to burninate, you can choose to devour, you can choose to do some other really cool stuff, which we'll talk about down below as far as movement and whatnot, and hiding. And you're going to be trying to avoid getting shot by arrows or attacked by knights. You want to try and avoid them as best as possible, all while at the same time as burning down these little itty bitty villages and ultimately winning the game that way. You'll get to choose your own character because you're not necessarily playing as Trogdor himself, but you're going to be playing as like his handlers, such as the guy Broblade, that's one really awesome character, or Jang, or Krang, or Stonklar, along with the availability of choosing an item to start with, or getting one randomly dealt to you, Disastro's Pouch, or the Disc of Healing. My personal favorite in here is actually going to be that dog throw toy. Here it is. That dog tennis ball thing, except with fireballs. You'll be choosing those, playing around, trying to burninate the ground, burninate everything, and if you can burninate the world, you win as Trogdor. Let me show you how it's played.
Oh, man, Strongman, you're not gonna believe this thing. Wait till you see this thing. This thing is gonna change your life, blow your mind, wipe your nose.
Then shut the dang up and let's see it already!
Let's talk about the setup and, of course, the components for Trogdor, the board game. As you can see here, this is everything that's going to be included. You'll be getting peasants, towns, which also have roofs that can be turned ablaze, as well as archers, Trogdor himself, and these knights. Don't forget about this Troghammer, who's going to be a third knight that will come out mid-game, along with, of course, using peasants and has health points as well. You'll also be getting these flaming fire hats to put on the peasants as they run around the board burning things up if you choose to burninate them. Some steps for your turn, the peasant and knights and archer movements, along with, of course, your actions you're going to be choosing throughout the game or your turn, as well as the potential for Troghammer to come out. You're going to have 2 other separate decks of cards that will be used for characters you can choose, along with the item you'll be selecting throughout the game as well. To set up the game, it's pretty simple. You're going to give every single player an item and a character. You can either do it of your choice or you can do it randomly. It'll play up to 4 players reasonably. And after you've given out every one of these things here, you're going to take the other decks here and shuffle them. The rest of these cards will not be needed. You'll have turn steps that will illustrate what you can do on your turn and how it goes around. Of course, the last turn action being Savor the Havoc. That's just something you need to do every turn in the game Trogdor. Of course, on these cards here, it'll tell you the amount of actions and whatnot and the movement on these guys. But anyway, over here on the board, this is the normal setup for the game. So if you wanted to actually pause this and copy it, you could. However, it'll be in the rule book as well. You're going to be putting all the little villages or cottages here on these little circular areas, and then the knights are going to go on the 2-2 here, and this one I believe is 4-5 over here. Archers will start here, but there's different setups for different varying difficulty. We just started with this one obviously for the base game, so you get a good idea that everything's a little more spread out. You're going to be getting these areas here, which are the mountains where you can go ahead and hide in. You'll be getting these tunnel areas that you can go back and forth in, and of course you're going to be dealing with burninating the cottages. That is pretty much what you're going to get in the game, along with getting this box here, this Trogdor box. And this is kind of funny because it does remind me of something that Strongbad would actually put in the game in, so you actually get this thing here. I doubt you'll be getting it though. You'll probably get something a lot nicer.
You suck.
Anyway, let me tell you how to play the game along with what you can do on your turn. Depending on the difficulty of the game is where Trogdor is going to start off with. In the beginning of the game, the basic tutorial, you're going to have Trogdor starting in the middle. And you're going to start with also 1 card in your hand, which will give you the amount of actions you'll have on that turn, along with some bonus. For instance, on this turn, if Trogdor burninates a tile with a stump or a rock on it, you get 4 more actions. That can be very useful. But in general, it'll tell you how many actions you can have and the actions you get to do. You're going to get to do the 4 different types of actions, but they're utilized in 7 different ways. You're going to be able to move, which is simply moving from one tile to another. You can choose to burninate. Burninate allows you to either burn the ground that you are standing on, to burn a cottage, provided that the all the adjacent tiles have been burninated as well, or to burninate peasants. When you burninate peasants, they are removed from the game, and it's important to note that because peasants represent your health. If you remove them from the game by burninating them, they will first run around the board based on a movement tile. After that, they will get removed and all the land underneath them will burn, and they're not going to come back. So the other way you're going to want to use peasants is by consuming them or eating them, devouring them. And in which case, any peasants on the board that you devour that you're standing on will actually go into your health pool, which is very important. The last thing you can do is hide. Hiding is important as well because let's say you got a lot of bad guys around you and you want to avoid them. You can use an action to lay down on a mountain and then they won't be able to see you. If they go past you or shoot you, it's not going to affect you, so that can be very useful as well. The turn steps are pretty interesting. The S is obviously for steps. You're going to draw a card from the Trog deck, so you'll start with 1 and you'll draw 1. Then you're going to choose one of the cards to play. Depending on which card you play is what you're going to do on your turn, whether it be 4 or 6 actions. Then it says, obviously, take your actions, do whatever the 4 different types you can do on the board, and your objective is to burninate and destroy and eat everything, right? Then you're going to draw a card from the movement deck, and these movement deck cards are pretty simple, right? They're going to have the left side and the right side. The left side is going to represent peasants, and that says, right up here it says, okay, if there are 2 or less peasants in the game, you have to add another peasant, or basically, if there is less peasants on the board than there are represented on this, you're going to add another peasant. Then it's going to tell you to move the peasants. This says move them southwest, and there's a green symbol on the arrow as opposed to a red. Green means whenever they walk onto a space that's been burninated, they're going to repair it. Red means they won't. After you go ahead and do either spawn and then move the peasants, you're going to then summon the knights and archers to move around the board. Knights and archers are a little different than Trogdor. Trogdor cannot loop around the board, however knights and archers can. Knights and archers will move from this point all the way around the board, and it basically tells you exactly how it works on the card, along with it says south, west, west, north. So that's pretty simple. It's pretty easy to understand how that works. But they do wrap around if need be. If a knight hits Trogdor, Trogdor is going to take a damage, and if an archer shoots, and he can shoot all the way across the board on either side, then Trogdor is also going to take damage as well. After you go ahead and do that, you're going to move on from past the movement card, and you're going to savor the havoc. Savor the Havoc's pretty simple. You go, wow, everything has been done this round. Let's start again. The next player is going to take their turn, and they are going to do all the same things. Drawing a card, playing the actions, moving around the board, so on and so forth. The game is going to get progressively more difficult, because as you draw these action cards, there's going to be Trog cards as well, like Summon Forth Young Troghammer. The first one you're going to ignore. The second one, however, the Troghammer is going to spawn, and he basically counts as another knight, except for whenever anybody draws a Troghammer card, you're going to instantly move him based on a directional card, and of course he also moves whenever directional cards are used at the end of a turn. So he's pretty scary and can make the game dangerous. First one, he simply is ignoring, it's ignored. The second one, he spawns, and then the third one, fourth one, and so on, he starts moving around the board in addition to the basic movements. And, of course, you're going to be using this little flaming peasant hat whenever you burninate the peasants. Other than that, that's the basic idea of it. Let me go ahead and show you a couple turns of how to play the game. It is a cooperative game in which you're working together to progressively help Trogdor. I'll also show you some of the different character abilities and item abilities and how they function as well.
All right, mash go on that blender. Oh, swirly Photoshop magic. I bet this thing could release some serious cackle demons. So what? I just jump in? OBKB, jump!
Back to the board for Trogdor, and as you can see, I've set up the characters. These are each of the different players. They have their character along with their items. And each character has abilities. Some of them actually have no abilities. But for instance, this guy here, Krangjag, he says he can move diagonally. Normally, Trogdor can only move up, down, left, or right. But with Krangjag on this player's turn, he can move him diagonally. Pretty cool, right? Bravelade says peasants cannot repair burn a nation on your turn. So when a peasant is moving and has a green directional side, this is the burn a nation side here, he could move onto the space and repair it by making it green again, but not on Bravelade's turn. You've got this Hardy Barty. You have no special powers whatsoever. Wow, sad. You suck. Stoneclaw, you have, wraparound movement. So in general, on his turn, he can actually move around the board like so. Otherwise, you could not normally do that, but these guys can. And of course, you get items, right? And these items have a use. You can use them on your turn. You're simply going to turn them sideways when you've used them. It says here, you get +2 action points. And when you use them, they do not instantly get refreshed on your turn. They only refresh when Trogdor does the thing that it asks it to do. When Trogdor visits a flower tile. So if you look at the flower tiles over here, if this gets used and maybe on somebody else's turn, Trogdor goes to a flower tile, this gets unused. So it can work at any point in time throughout the game, whether it's on your turn or not, but you can only use it once on your turn. And they all have different abilities, which we'll talk about above. But to begin the game, it's pretty simple. You're going to draw a card. We're going to have Stoneclaw go first. He has the wraparound movement. And he's going to draw one of these two cards, or one of these cards. He already has one to begin with. He's got block, and he's got flip him up, friend. Or flip him up, Fran. This one here is 4 action, and this one is 4 action as well. But this one says Trogdor can't be hurt by knights or the archer during their action this turn, so he can avoid taking damage this turn, which is pretty useful. And then this one says, after all Trogdor's actions, you may burninate up to 4 diagonal tiles. So this one's probably a pretty good one, so we'll go ahead and play this one here. He gets 4, so he can go, let's see here, what does he want to do? The first thing he could do would be simply to burninate, so he can burninate this tile here. That'd be 1 action, that would be 2 to move, and then we have maybe 3 over here. And, what else does he want to do? Well, he can go over here for 4. That will be his last movement, so he's not going to be able to burninate this one. And then, of course, he'd be able to use his ability, which says he can burninate diagonal tiles. Well, this would be the greatest spot because he wouldn't get this or this. This one he wouldn't get because you have to burninate everything around it. And this one he wouldn't get either because it would have to burninate the up, down, left, and right. So maybe a better move would be to go over here because that would allow him to burninate this one here and this one here. After that is done, you've drawn your card, you've taken your actions, draw a card from the movement deck, so we'll go ahead and do that. We'll flip over a movement card from the movement card deck, and here we go. It says, is there 1 or less or more peasants? There is, so it is not going to spawn any peasants. This would spawn, if there was no peasants, it would spawn 1 peasant. All peasants are then going to move south. And this is red, so that means that they're not going to repair. If this was a green arrow, then he would actually flip this over. And this peasant will go like that. After the peasants have went ahead and moved, then the knights are going to move first and the archers. And it's going to be up, left, up. So up, and then left, and then up, left, up. And then the same with the archers, up, left, up. Archers are going to shoot all the way across the board. No hits for Trogdor. Trogdor never got hit by a knight. So that would be the end of the movement card. And it tells you here, draw a card from the movement deck, spawn a peasant if so, move a peasant, move a knight, move archers, and then shoot. Save for the havoc, and have the next player go. So the next player over here, he's got, oh, this guy had wraparound movement, sorry. This guy has no actions at all. Let's look at his ability, though. It says you can jump to any tile, and it recharges whenever a cottage or a cottage space is burninated. So that's pretty useful there. Now, you could choose to go onto a cottage space and burninate the tile. You just couldn't burninate the cottage itself. So that actually would have worked. But anyway, we'll continue, though. So maybe he wants to, well, let's go ahead and first draw the card. So we'll draw this one here, that he's got the hidey hole. That says after Trogdor's actions, you can jump to a mountain space and hide for free. So if he wanted to at the end, he can go here and hide. That's a hide action, which means nothing can hit him or shoot him. And then we've got the... once this turn, if Trogdor burninates a tile with a stump or a rock on it, gain +4 more actions. Well, the stump is right here, and the rock is over there, so he might not be able to get there because he has no special powers. He'd have to go 1, 2, 3, and then burn that. I mean, that wouldn't be too bad, I guess. This one's probably a better one, so he'll go ahead and use the hidey hole. So he uses that. He gets his 4 actions, right? So he goes 1, 2, 3, and 4. That will burn. He burninates 2 tiles, not too bad. He then gets to jump to a mountainous space and hide there, which is pretty sweet. Then you're going to draw a card from the movement deck, and we're going to get a new one here. And this one says peasants are all going to move south. It's also red, so the peasants are going to do their thing. There's no peasants here, so no peasants are going to spawn, unless there is no peasants to begin with. And then you got knights and archers, and they're going to go up, up, and to the right. So up, up, and to the right, up, up, and to the right, up, and to the right. He'll go ahead and do his shots, and then this card is going to be done. Save for the havoc, and the next player is going to get to go. This one over here, he's got +2 action points, which he's definitely going to use. So we're going to go ahead and use that one for sure. He's going to draw his action card. He's got 2, and one says, for an action point, he can burninate a diagonal tile. That's pretty useful. And devour any peasant on the board. We'll go ahead and use this one. So he gets 6 actions, and he can devour any peasant on the board. So 1 and 2. He eats these guys up. It's pretty solid. Actually, maybe, yeah, we'll eat these 2 up. Why not? And then we'll go 3 and 4, 5. So we're eating them all up. We need to get this one now to be able to mess with this guy here. Let's go ahead and tap this to use it. So that will give us 2 more movements and allow us to do another burninate. Pretty useful, this gross beans here, I suppose. And also maybe to check whenever things are happening on this turn if these were used to see if you could actually reuse them again. And then, of course, that would end and a movement card would be drawn. Now, let's go ahead. You guys get the basic idea of how it's going to function. You want to burn everything. When these are all burned, then you can actually burninate this cottage here. Whenever peasants go onto cottage tiles that are burning, peasants themselves will get lit on flame, and then you're going to draw a movement card and move them around. Whenever peasants are on flame, and they are moving around on tiles that are not burninated, they'll burninate those tiles. However, the peasants will get removed from the game. They won't go back into here when you devour them for your HP, so they're going to get removed. But what's also interesting too is, let's say a peasant was here and this was on fire, for instance, and this was a peasant here, and he walked on here. They all went north, right? He walked here, he got burninated. Then he drew a movement card and it said to go left, left. This guy is then going to burninate as well. He's going to draw a new movement card and he's going to get set on fire. And all the time, whenever that's happening, going to be burninating to tiles they walk on. So that is how it works with these. Burninating is pretty useful, but you lose lives and they don't come back to you in here, which is not very good, because continuously as the game goes on, eventually this Troghammer is going to spawn and move around the board and be hitting you. And eventually you're going to be losing these HP points, when they're gone, you're in trouble, especially considering the fact that whenever there's no peasants on the board, these spawning peasants are going to spawn from your HP, so it's another way for you to lose HP, which is pretty scary as well. But that's the basic idea of the game, other than showing you the Troghammer, and the Troghammer cards look pretty simple. It just says summon forth ye Troghammer. The first one does nothing. The second one is going to allow him to move on his own, and then obviously whenever he's on the board, he'll move along with these knights here, and obviously if Trogdor goes through them himself, or if they hit him, he's going to take damage. And of course, this guy, if he is ever in the row in which Trogdor is at as well, they'll go ahead and shoot him. Like, it doesn't matter what's in the way, they're just going to be doing damage to him. So always try to avoid these things as well. And that's a basic idea of how to play the game Trogdor. Obviously, it's very similar to the app-based game with a little more strategy. The fact that you're using these guys to move Trogdor around as kind of his handler. Let's come up on the board and talk about it.
The Trogdor comes in the night!
So a couple caveats before we get into the review. The first thing is obviously with summoning Yang forth Troghammer, basically a third knight, if you draw him in your starting hand, you're going to shuffle him back. And also throughout the game, let's say you draw one, he's going to actually move or he's going to spawn depending on which one you've drawn and what order. If you draw another one right after that, because you're always going to draw another action, draw another card that's going to represent actions after drawing this card. It doesn't represent anything but moving the Troghammer. The extra sequential ones are just going to be shuffled back. So you're going to have the Troghammer move more than once in a turn from this card here. Other than that, you have these little guys here. These are going to represent the caves that you can go through, whether they're burnt or not, and you can basically go from one side of the board to the other depending on how the setup of the game is. Also note that going through knights is the same as them going through. You're going to be taking damage that way, and the way you win is by burning everything. The last thing is death throws, which is simple. You're going to be drawing cards. If all your health is gone, it'll basically tell you that you are in death throws, which means you're going to lose the game, but you have one more chance. And it's pretty simple how that works. You're going to take the movement cards, these guys here. You're going to draw a certain number of them based on the difficulty. I think it's like 4. And then you're going to move across the board, burninating and devouring everything in your path. If you're able to burninate and devour everything in your path after the game is over, you can still win the game as an extra little bonus. But otherwise, if you don't, you're going to lose. Everything is, it's an all or nothing style game with a little bonus at the end if you can't do it. That is the basic aspect, right? There's a ton of different characters. They all have their own unique abilities that do definitely help. Of course, the items are cool and they refresh based on your actions throughout the game. Sometimes they're not going to be refreshing as much as others based on the fact that maybe you don't need to go to that side of the board anymore because you've burned it all up. But nevertheless, they are still good and it's still useful. Without them, the game would be very, very difficult.
My email all of the time.
Burninating.
Oh, pencils keep on peeing, and we'll raise quite a ruckus. In case you haven't guessed by now, the S is for suckus. The S is for sucks. The S is for sucks. The S is for sucks. The S for sucks. The S is for sucks. The S is for sucks. The S is for sucks. The S for sucks. C to BPR. U uneven style. B constabulate V. W what a pile. Excuse me, Mr. Trogdor, you've run out of luck. In case you haven't heard the news, the S is for sucks. The S is for sucks. The S is for sucks.
Yes, that's right. Burninating is very, very difficult. In fact, because there's so much stuff going on, and the longer the game starts taking, the more likely these guys are going to hit you. And when they hit you, and they start removing peasants, as well as when you start burninating the peasants and they just catch on fire. I mean, it's cool to watch them all just burninate and run around, but removing them from the game is nasty, because that means they're not coming back, and that's health you don't get anymore. And these little movement cards can actually make you suffer as well for not having peasants on the board. By devouring them, it gives you an extra turn, because they're going to have to place them off your board. So you're going to have to start thinking really strategically at the end of the game. It starts off pretty simple, pretty basic as far as the app-based game goes, or the flash-based game, which I played like years and years and years ago, where you're just Trogdor and you're moving around, burninating peasants, burninating villages, and avoiding the guys. This game works just like that. There's way more fun involved in this game, though, for sure, but it has a very, very similar feel. The nostalgia factor was way up there for me, and I really, really enjoyed this game. Now, realize that I love Homestar Runner. I love all of the different little skits they've done, and I'm a big fan of Trogdor the Burninator. It's why I really wanted to review this game. So, I have to tell you what my other people who played this game thought. And the two other people who played the first game with me, obviously my cameraman, really, really enjoyed this game and didn't have a lot of knowledge on Homestar Runner. I got them into showing showing them the video of it, and they thought that was a lot of fun, and they thought it represented it really well. I even played the little flash game in front of them, so they saw how it kind of functioned, and that was all well and good. It does represent the game. It is actually very challenging in this game. The longer you take, the longer it's more difficult, as well as the shuffling of the board does make it even more challenging, and you can even increase the challenge if you really want to, which I would suggest. It's already difficult as it is, which is fun, and I like that aspect, because it starts off easy mode, you think you're doing well, and then you're down to the last little spaces, and suddenly all the dudes are right around there, and they're just trying to get you. And I don't know, it works. It works. It's beautiful. It's fun. It has vibrant colors. It has one of my favorite super anti-villain heroes with his big muscly arm in the background. I love it. This game's really, really fun. If nothing else, it'll be a great showpiece for you. If you're not going to be interested in this type of game, but you really, really enjoy Homestar Runner, it's going to function that way. But nevertheless, if you have never heard of Homestar Runner before, you've never heard of Strong Bad and all the great little characters that cheat, then that's okay too. This game is still a lot of fun. Do give it a chance. Do go ahead and look at it. It's not just one of those nostalgia-based games. I mean, for me, it started off as that way, but once I started digging into the gameplay and moving around, I was like, wow, this actually has a lot of depth to it, a lot of strategy, and of course the randomness comes in from the cards that are being drawn as far as whether the peasants are going to be spawning or whether the characters like the knights and the archers are going to be moving. But you can prevent that at the cost of less actions and taking a little longer to win the game. But of course, if you choose to be more risky, you can get more actions and of course be likely to take damage. Overall though, this game is excellent. My seal of approval hands down, and I'm very excited to see the game in its full production value. Of course, this is a prototype, so I'm very, very excited to see this. Make it fun! Alright guys, thanks for watching the Unfiltered Gamer Burninator review. If you like this video, go check out the rest of our videos here on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment, and all those help, as well as checking out Trogdor! I'm terrible, I'm not even gonna try. On Kickstarter in the description below. The nostalgia is so real with this game, and the fact that it's good too just makes me very, very happy, right? I didn't even say anything bad about it, really. I mean, I guess if you don't like games that involve cooperation and moving around a board with Trogdor, I don't know. It's up to you. Just figure it out for yourself. Also, go check out our website, unfilteredgamer.com. We've got tons of blog posts, giveaway, Kickstarter lists, and more. As well as check out our friends, everythingboardgames.com, The Gift Game, and Ferdinand, the Cardboard Stacker. Alright guys, thank you for watching. As always, I look forward to burninating with you next time. Take it away, Strong Bad.
What? That's not an improvement.
Trogdor strikes again!
Trogdor! Trogdor!
Trogdor was a man. I mean, he was a dragon man. I mean, he was just a dragon. But he was still Trogdor! Trogdor! Burninating the countryside, burninating the peasants, burninating all the people in the thatched roof cottages! Thatched roof cottages! And the Trogdor comes in the night!